Welcome ESL to a special edition of ESL Trackside. As today I'll give a quick overview of who made the playoffs, who was left out, and how the playoffs will work. If anybody has any questions at any time, just leave your question in the chat and I'll answer it as best as I can. I know this is new to all of us as far as playoffs for the Cup Series. So let's start with who made the playoffs and who got left out. Just give me 1 second here as I set this up here. So here are the regular season standings. And as you can see, Justin Chris, he finished 20th. But because he won a race, he makes the playoffs. So he basically bumps off Billy Sauter. So Billy Sauter does not make the playoffs because Justin Chris takes that last playoff spot. Freddie Trammell does make the playoffs, and Odion Muldoon makes the playoffs as well, and he snuck in by 2 points. And Zach Holdorf did not make it. They were short 2 points. Rooster Rodden was short 3 points, and those were the closest drivers that had a shot to sneak in. Odion with a battered car, he still made the playoffs. It just shows you, even if you're having a bad race, as long as you can get that car back out on the track, um, that was the deciding factor for Odion. Maybe he gained a few positions, and that's all it takes. That gave him enough points to get into the playoffs. So congrats to him and his team. Um, it's a new team, so it's great to see new teams do pretty well. So that was the scenario for drivers that were on the bubble and drivers that were outside looking in. It's unfortunate for Billy. He had that last spot, but because of Justin Chris's win, Justin Chris is locked in. So Billy's the one outside looking in, unfortunately. Let's take a look at the season schedule. As we saw, Amelia Rose won week 1 at Daytona, and Merle McGuire won at week 2 at Martinsville. And week 3, we had a Kyle Storm win at Atlanta. Week 4 at the Indianapolis Road Course, Justin Chris won. That's what sealed the deal for him to get in the playoffs, and it worked out because he wouldn't have made it by points. Week 5 was Kentucky with Killmonger. Takes the win there. Week 6 at New Hampshire, Doug Britton with the wild last final laps there, battling McGuire. Week 7 at Iowa, JQ. He locks himself in. And in week 8 was Lotus Lee, and Lotus Lee is your regular season champion. And he wins at Auto Club. We'll take a look at the playoff schedule. Well, first let's take a look at the drivers that made the playoffs. And then I'll do a quick explanation of what these points mean. Just bear with me. First time doing this. Okay, so for the playoffs, here are your drivers that made the playoffs. Lotus Lee, Merle McGuire, Killmonger Vasquez, Andrew Green, Kyle Storm, Amelia Rose, Justin Chris, and Gunny McGuire, Doug Britton, JQ, Robert Tibbs, E. Weezy, Kenny Flourish, Odion Muldoon, Brogan Spurraw, and Freddie Trammell. Those are your top 16 drivers that made the playoffs. We had all 5 Brew Crew drivers make it, 3 low fuel drivers, 3 Northern Lights drivers, actually 4 low fuel racing drivers, um, 2 DOG drivers, and 1 Apex. Almost every team has a driver in the playoffs except for Can-Am. They didn't make the cut. So how do these playoffs, how the points work? As you can see, Lotus Lee has 21 points to start the playoffs. How did he get those points? He got those points by 1, being a regular season champion, 2, he won a race, and 3, he won a stage. So um, 1 through 10, the drivers with the most points 1 through 10 during a regular season get playoff points. So since Lotus Lee was first, he got 15 points for being a regular season points leader champion. So he gets 15 points for that, which carry over into the playoffs. He won a race, so each time you win a race in a regular season, you win 5 points. So those 5 points carried over. That put him at 20. And he won 1 stage all season. In the first 8 races, he won 1 stage. So he gets 1 point for winning a stage, and that's how you get to 21 points. Merle McGuire, he was second. So for second, he gets 14 points because of the accumulation he had of your regular season's points, your stage wins, um, and any wins that he had. Killmonger is at 13 points. Andrew Green is at 13. Kyle Storm is at 12. Amelia Rose at 10. Justin Chris 7. Gunny McGuire at 7. Doug Britton at 6. JQ with 6. Robert Tibbs with 4. E. Weezy with 3. Kenny Flores with 1. Odion with 1. And Brogan he didn't win, and he didn't have any stage wins. So he starts off with 0, and the same with Freddie Trammell. He also has 0 points. I just got to double check Merle's points. Give me 1 second here. At any time, if anyone has any questions, just throw them in the chat, and I'll answer them. But just give me a second. I need to just verify Merle's points. Okay, so I made a mistake with Merle. So he has 16 points. So um, just so everyone knows, because he did win a race. Um, so he got 10 points. He got 10 points for coming in second place in the regular season in the standings. Um, no, sorry, that is right. My fault. It's my first time doing this, so bear with me. Um, okay, so this is correct. Okay, just double checking. I don't like to put the wrong information out. Okay, so he finished third in points. Merle finished third in points during the regular season, so he gets 8 points for third place. He won a race, so that puts him at 13, and he only won one stage, so that puts him at 14 points. So that's how we get all these points. So that's why I stressed during the season that wins were very important, and stage wins are extremely important. Important, and where you finish in the standings is important because obviously look at Lotus Lee and Merle and Killmonger. Um, Lotus didn't do much during the season. He was pretty consistent. Um, he had every race he was finishing pretty good. He only had one win and only one stage win. But because he finished first in overall points, he gets 15 playoff points for that, which carry over into the playoffs. So yes, as far as Rhett asked the question, if points are reset to zero except playoff points and the bottom four are eliminated. So how the first round is going to work is, all these drivers start off with these points you see right here. And once the race is done, whoever won the race obviously gets um, playoff points for that. If that driver wins any races, wins any stages, um, or even finishes in the top 10 in each stage and gets points, those get added. And wherever the driver finishes, those points also get added. Then I'll calculate all the results, and the bottom four that did not meet the cut line of 12 are eliminated. Once we move to the next round, um, once we move to the next round, the points reset. So the only points that carry over are the points that you see right here on the screen. And if you won the race, you'll get the extra 5 points. And if you won any stages, you get the points for that. Those will be the only points that carry over to the round of 12. So let's just say, for example, Lotus Lee, he made the cut, right? He made the cut, but he didn't win the race. He only won one stage. Um, so he only gets that 1 point. So that puts him at 22 points. So to start the next round, instead of him having 21 points to start, he's going to have 22. So only playoff points carry over round to round. So that's how that's going to work. But how we determine who makes the cut is by the total points of how you finished in the race. Did you get any stage points during the race? All those things get calculated, and that will determine who makes the cut to move to the next round. Then the points reset. Once we get to the round of four, which is the championship round, there is no points involved. It's basically whoever finishes higher than any of the other three is the champion. So it's like a straight race. There's no points involved. It's just straight up. I just need to finish better than these other three. Um, And if you do that, you're the champion for the season. So this is actually going to be the hardest, I think, way to win the championship since we started this. You have to have a lot of things go your way to keep advancing to each round. So as we talked about, um, the playoff points, wins get you 5 points, and a stage win gets you 1 point. Um, and those are the only points that will carry over round to round. Um, so those points are going to be extremely important. If you get a win, that's huge. And if you get a win, you automatically advance to the next round. It doesn't matter if you make the cut line or not. You automatically advance to the next round. So winning is huge. Just like in the regular season, if you win, you're locked in. In the playoffs, if you win, you advance. So winning is extremely important. Like once you win, you already know you're moving on to the next round, no matter what the points look like. Um, and only the playoff points carry over. Um, nah, actually, Lotus Lee's he's not locked in for the finals because he has 21 points. So say he crashes out. You get no points for that. Um, so he's only going to have 21 points. So he would fall below the cut line in the first round. So it's definitely not a lock. Like, because you still score points for your finishes. You know, those are tallied in for the for whoever moves for whoever makes the cut to move over. So you still have to finish really good during the race. Yeah, he does have a 20-point cushion, but if he finishes like 30th or lower, chances are he's not moving to the next round. Um, so having good finishes is extremely key. Um, yeah, so yeah, if he would have to finish pretty low, but if all the drivers behind him finish pretty high, you know, that's tough. I mean, plus in the second round it gets even harder because um, say he barely gets into the second round, um, drivers that won stages and won a race, that's just another cushion. They can catch up. They can easily catch up. They can cut into that deficit pretty quick. Because there is 4 rounds. So, I mean, I still feel you still have to be consistent to get to the uh, to the finals. I don't think you could flop, you know, in any race really. I think that's you're done. I think anybody that wrecks out is pretty much done. I don't see people advancing that way. We'll see how that plays out. Um, Also, all the playoffs cars will have yellow banners on the windshield. That's for us to know and for me to know what cars are the playoff cars during the race, and it'll be easier to keep track of who are your playoff drivers and which cars on the track um, are in the playoffs. Let's take a look at the playoff schedule. As you can see, we are at Watkins Glen, and this is where we start the playoffs. Then we head to Talladega, which who knows what's going to happen there. That should be a very interesting race because I feel like these standings are going to get extremely tight as we keep moving from round to round. Um, week 11 is Kansas, and week 12 is the championship round at Phoenix. And once again, whatever driver finishes higher than the rest, he is the champion. That's how the championship round works. There's no points involved in the last round. It's just straight up racing. Who does better? Um, yeah, that's pretty much what I have. If anyone has any questions, I'm going to put back the drivers that made the playoffs. These are your top 16 heading into the round of 16. Um, Brogan and Freddie, they have their work cut out for them. They have no playoff points to start the playoffs. But if they win, they advance. So, winning, once again, winning is extremely important, just like the regular season. Um, so if you win, you advance, and you get those 5 points, plus you get uh, a point for winning the stage. So it's extremely important to get a win. And we're at 4 different style tracks. We're starting off with a road course. Then we're moving to a super speedway. Then we move down to a mile and a half. And then we go down to a mile. So we have all types of different tracks. And we will put all these driver builds to the test. Playoffs are not supposed to be easy. It's going to be tough. Um, can you work your way to the championship round? You know, um, so we will see. But it's good to see that we have almost all the teams in the league have at least one driver in the playoffs, except Can-Am. But that just shows you how competitive the next gen series is. And yeah, it's gonna be a great playoffs. I'm looking forward to it. This is our first time. This is why I wanted kind of to go over this. I know there's gonna be questions. Like I said earlier, if you have any questions, just post them in the chat. I'll answer them right now. Um, and for those of you that just jumped on and are looking at these points and saying, well, what is this? These are the points that the drivers accumulated during the regular season. Um, some drivers got points by, their where they placed in the regular season standings. Only the top 10 drivers in points. Um, only the top 10 drivers in points get playoff points. So, first place got 15 points. Second place got 10. Third place got 8. Fourth place got 7. Sixth place got 5 points. Let me backtrack there. Fifth place got 6 points. Sixth place got 5 points. Seventh place got 4 points. Eighth place got 3 points. Ninth place got 2 points. And 10th place only gets 1 point. And that is why Kenny Flourish only has 1 point to start the playoffs. Um, he finished 10th in points, but he had no wins and he had no stage wins. So that's how we come to that number. The same with Odeon. He snuck into the playoffs, so he finished 13. He gets no playoff points for his standings, but he did win one stage, and that's why he has the 1 point um, on the board there. And Eweezy, He finished ninth in points, so he gets 2 points, and he won a stage during the season, so he gets that point. So that's how we come to the total of 3 points. I'm just giving you um, a few examples of how you get how we came up to these totals. And this is not rules that I made up. Um, these are actually NASCAR rules um, of how they do it. The only difference with our league and the NASCAR, as far as the playoffs go, um, in NASCAR they do 3 races per round, but because we have a condensed schedule, it's way shorter. I can only do 1 race per round. Um, and I didn't want to start the playoffs too early to give people enough opportunity to try to at least win or get into the playoffs. So we're just 1 race per round instead of 3. That's the only difference. But as far as everything else, um, as far as how the point system works, we're following NASCAR as far as scoring goes. Um, so does anyone have any questions before I close this up? No question is a dumb question. You know, we're all new to this, so feel free to ask anything you have to. Right now, Kyle Storm is the leader as far as fastest lap. Progression hasn't been added to the cars yet, so just keep that in mind. Um, we got Robert Tibbs in second. Who else? Kenny's in fifth. He's in the playoffs. Gunny's in sixth. Merle's in ninth. And Andrew is in 10th. Um, any predictions? Who wins? Man, honestly, I think any of these drivers could win. Um, the field is just so competitive, as we've seen. We had 8 different winners in 8 races, so that shows you how competitive it is. I don't know. Like, obviously, Brew Crew has 5 drivers in there, so that team has the best chance to get a driver, at least one driver, in the finals. Who knows if they can get 4? I mean, we'll see how it plays out. It's gonna be interesting, like how the points play out. If any driver struggles during the race, um, how we know how wrecks can happen, how wild things can get. Um, yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and maybe one of these bottom guys, you know, win a race, and that'll change the complexion of the whole playoffs. Because now that one of those drivers just took away a spot from one of the top drivers. So I mean, man, it's gonna be interesting, and who makes the cut week to week? This is the round of 16. Um, so the bottom 4 get eliminated. Then we have the round of 12. Then it's the bottom 4 of that get eliminated, and the top 8 advance, and then we have the round of 8, and the bottom 4 get eliminated, and the top 4 advance, and then we have your championship round. So each round is going to get harder and harder. Um, and we'll see how drivers do in each round. Like, we're at 4 different tracks, so it's 4 different styles of racing. It's gonna be extremely difficult. we're starting off at a road course. Road courses can be nuts. Um, then we go to Talladega. Who knows what's going to happen at Talladega? Um, then we go a mile and a half, and then we go to a mile. So who can survive some of these tracks and get points along the way? That's basically going to be the key, is to be consistent as possible. If I was one of these playoff drivers, I'll be happy top 15, top 10 every race. Obviously, I would want higher, but I think if you can hang around somewhere around there, those are your best chances to continue advancing. Um, because if you have one bad race, even with a cushion to start the play, I think you get eliminated. I think you really can't have. I don't think you could finish like 20 or lower. That's my thoughts on that. I could be wrong, but it also depends where all these other drivers finish during the race as well. So that comes into play too. Um, so this is what's gonna make. If you win the championship, you definitely earned it. This is gonna be the hardest season that we've had to win the Cup Series championship. So if you can, even if you make it to the championship round, I think you had a successful season, even if you don't win it all, because it's just extremely hard to get to that point. Um, even for these drivers that made the round of 16, they should be proud of that accomplishment. There's 36, only 16 made it. Uh, so they should be at least even just proud that you made the playoffs. Look at DLG. Their new team, they got two drivers for their first season. Be it that they snuck in, they made it though. Um, they fought through some tough races during the season, and here we are. There they are. 14th and 15th. Um, and it just shows you consistency is so important. Of course, everybody wants to win, but consistency is just as important. Um, Winning is not easy. Justin Chris won. He's last season's champion. But if he didn't have that win, he would have not made it. So, but here he is. He's gonna try to repeat, and we know he has a fast car. So, um, I have the wrong logo on his car, by the way. But um, yeah, so it's gonna be interesting. So we have, almost a representation of each team in the league except Can-Am, but they only had two drivers in the Cup Series, so I'm sure that'll change for next season. Um, and there is a possibility. It's not set in stone, but there is a possibility I expand the field in the Cup Series. Um, how much more do I expand it? I don't know. I have to test a little more in the off season. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I just want to kind of put that out there a little bit. Um, so yeah, if anyone doesn't have any more questions, um, I will be ending the show. I think I covered everything. Let me just double check, because I know some people will watch this after. I'll go up. I'm just gonna go over. I'm just gonna post a regular season uh, standings up once again. Um, this doesn't show everybody, but it shows 12 through 20. I just wanted to show the drivers that were on the bubble and the ones that were the ones that were outside looking in. Um, it was close, man. I'm telling you, that last race, man, there was so many scenarios that were happening. It was wild. And then when all the cars that were on the bubble started like crashing out or just having some bad luck, that seriously changed everything. Um, Zach, he was on the bubble. King was on the bubble. Like there was a lot of drivers on the bubble, and because they struggled, they missed out on the playoffs. Um, Odion, he snuck in by 2 points. That was the difference, and that could be two positions in a race or getting some stage points. So that's how important these points are. That it came down to 2 points. Oh, sorry, I had to step away. But yeah. So it just shows you how how important those points are. I mean, 2 points is not like they snuck in by a hair. Um, and unfortunately for Billy Sauter and Zach, I mean they were tied at 195, but because Justin Chris wins the race, he gets moved in, and Billy Sauter gets bumped out. So it came down to 2 points. Which could have been finishing, like seventh in a stage, or just placing 2 positions higher at Auto Club, or 3 positions higher. That was the difference for the number 61 in making the playoffs. So that's how close it was. And if you look, um, even Doug Britton, he won a race, but and JQ, they all had 195. You have 4 drivers sitting there at 195 points. That was but the deciding factor for those 2 drivers was that they won a race. So it literally locked them in. So regardless of what happened, they were in. So um, now, if there was a tie, that's something I I want to talk about. If there was a tie and none of these drivers had won a race, the tiebreaker is wins. As you can see, uh, Doug Britton and JQ still would have been tied because they both won. Top fives, they both had one, so they were still tied. Top tens, they both had 3. So top 20 would have been the tiebreaker. Um, Doug Britton had 5 and JQ had 4. So Doug Britton would have the tiebreaker. Um, so if this happens in the playoffs, that there is a tie, then that's what's going to determine tiebreaker. Um, but it'll be the total amount of wins, not just playoff wins. It's going to be total amount of wins. If we can't determine it, if it can't be determined by wins, then we'll move on to the next category, which will be top fives, and if not, top tens. And if they're still tied at top 20, um, then it's going to be by laps led, and that will determine um, who moves forward. So hopefully we don't have a tie, and we don't have to determine who moves forward by that. But if it does happen, then that'll be the scenario for the tiebreaker. Um, and that's all I have. If anyone else has a question or something they just thought about, ask away. If not, I will be ending the show. And Kyle Storm is still on top of the leaderboard. Robert Tibbs is in second as far as fastest lap. Kenny Flourish, Gunny, Merle, Doug. I'm just naming the playoff drivers. Andrew Green 11th, Odian 12th. I don't remember. Let's see who won. So Justin Chris won the first road course of the season. And he is currently 23rd. Once again, the progressions haven't been added to any of these drivers, any team progressions. But that's where we sit. All right, so I appreciate everybody coming out and watching the stream. If you think of any questions after the fact, just hit me up. And anyone that watches this afterwards, replay, if you have any questions. Hopefully I answered any questions you had. But if I didn't, or if you think about something afterwards, just hit me up. I will be posting um, the round of 16 drivers in the Discord. These are your round of 16. I'll also post the rules. Eventually, I just want to make sure they're easy to understand. This is why I wanted to kind of explain it instead of just posting a bunch of rules and people having like 1,000 questions. But this probably was the easiest way to do it. But these are your round of 16. Congrats to everyone that made the playoffs, and for those that didn't, um, they just have to adjust and try to figure things out so you can be just a little better the next season. And also luck comes into play. You gotta have some luck at some of these tracks. So it is a combination of both skill and luck, especially at NASCAR racing. So um, yeah, so these are your round of 16. It's not easy to get here. Um, we'll see what happens round to round. I know things are going to get very intense moving forward. So um, we'll see who comes out on top in the first round. And once again, this has been JV on ESL Trackside Playoff Edition. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.